Hey everyone, Tony Traguardo here. Welcome to another episode of the Hoopla Diaries here on the Port Washington Public Library's YouTube channel. On this program, I take a look at some of the cool and fun things that are available on the Hoopla database, which you can get to through the Port Washington Public Library's website, and it's also available through many libraries both in Nassau County and throughout the country. So wherever you may be viewing this video, check out your local library, and your library card may give you access to this very fine database that has some great stuff in it. And this being October and us getting into the spirit of Halloween, I thought that I would look up some things about the Universal monsters. I'm not talking about, the things under the bed. I'm talking about the monsters that were featured in films made by Universal Studios. Now, sadly, the movies themselves are not available on Hoopla. You may have to make your way to the local library to find those on DVD. Also, many of the cable channels around the country are showing these films during the month of October, sometimes in marathons. So you may be able to go back and enjoy some of these great monster movies from when you were younger, or you may be able to turn your kids or your friends onto these films. And if you do enjoy the Universal monster movies like I do, you can go onto Hoopla, and what I did was I did a search for Universal monsters. And that's how I found out that the films themselves were not available. A search like that probably would have yielded the movies, and I did a couple of other things to try to make sure that they weren't there. But they are indeed not there. But I found some cool stuff anyway. There is a great book called Universal Monsters by an author named Marcello Gagliani Caputo. Anybody who loves scary movies will love this tribute to horror and film. The book takes you from the silent version of Phantom of the Opera that was produced in 1925 to the 1950s creature features. And all of these movies were produced by Hollywood's Universal Studios, hence why the collection's often referred to as Universal Monsters. All of them were fantastic films that created these frightening icons that became known all over the world. Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy, the Wolfman, the Invisible Man, and the Creature from the Black Lagoon. These are the ones that are looked at in the book by Marcello Gagliani Caputo. The book also pays tribute to the Hollywood stars who breathed life into all of these monsters. People like Lon Chaney, Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff. You can't say Bela Lugosi without saying Bela Lugosi. Boris Karloff, Lon Chaney Jr., Claude Rains, Vincent Price, and others. And it also remembers all of the great supporting players that were in a lot of these films. Of course, no book about this topic would be complete without a look at the geniuses behind the camera who made these films both terrifying and beautiful at the same time. This is really a must-read for any classic film lovers. Now, of course, if you've got young ones that you want to turn on to these classic films, you can also do a search for Hollywood monsters, and you'll get an excellent collection of books written by a gentleman named Kenny Abdo. These beautiful books are filled with photographs, some even in color, and it's cool to see images from these black and white films in color. And they provide background to the origin of the characters, to the stories. Very often the movies differ very much from the original book. Mary Shelley's book, Frankenstein, very different from the Universal version. It also talks about Hollywood's influence on the films, why some things were done in the films, the way they were done based on Hollywood at the time, and also the legacy that these movies left behind. The Hollywood Monster series includes books about Dracula the Wolfman, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the Mummy, Frankenstein, and the Invisible Man, and they're all available through Hoopla Digital. Now, if you don't feel like a monster movie, which another time when I went onto Hoopla, I thought to myself, okay, I don't want to do monsters, but I want to do something for October here. What else can I look for? So I typed in another fun, supernatural-ish word. I thought about magicians. or magician. I actually typed it in the singular. Put that into the search engine. I found some pretty cool stuff. One thing that it led me to was a book called The Moment of the Magician. It's a book by Alan Dean Foster, an author who's been around for a very long time. He's written some great books. Wrote a great Star Wars related book many years ago called Splinter of the Mind's Eye. But this particular book, Moment of the Magician, is part 4 of the Spellsinger Adventure series. Now, of course, rather than start in the middle, I clicked on the series name in Hoopla, and I started at the beginning. And if you enjoy epic fantasy and, well-written characters, this series is for you. From what I've seen, what I've read so far, it's very, very well written, original, and full of great characterization and some great original ideas. And again, that is the Spellsinger Adventure series. You can even search that in Hoopla to find the books. Now, I went back to my first page of responses, and I clicked through, again, just did Magician, and I found such fascinating pieces as Harry Houdini's book, The Practical Magician and Ventriloquist's Guide. Pretty neat. And it wasn't just books. I also, amazingly, found a very, very fine album that I'd forgotten about. Uriah Heep put out an excellent record in 1972 called Musician's Birthday. And there that was on Hoopla. So look at that. My search for musicians brought me to an album that I had forgotten. It was extremely good. But the most fun surprise for me was an audiobook called Daws Butler, Voice Magician. This 1-hour recording traces the career of one of America's best loved but least seen actors. During his 50-year career, Daws Butler provided the voices for such beloved animated characters as Quick Draw McGraw, Yogi Bear, Huckleberry Hound, Elroy Jetson, Chilly Willy, and dozens of others. And weaving in and out of the interview with Daws Butler are samples of his distinct and tremendous voice characterizations that could be heard in cartoons, radio, television programs, commercials, and comedy records for so many, many, many years. If you grew up with great memories of any of the characters I mentioned or the shows they were in, you will definitely enjoy this hour-long audio experience. Just great. Speaking of audio, for anyone who is a fan of or is curious about old-time radio, as I am, this magician search also led me to the full run of a radio series called Shandu the Magician. That's C-H-A-N-D-U. The American-born Frank Chandler goes to learn occult secrets from a yogi in India. Changing his name to Shandu, he attains several supernatural skills, including astral projection, teleportation, and the ability to weave illusions. And Shandu sets the goal to, quote, go forth with his youth and strength to conquer the evils that threaten mankind. Go Shandu. That's noble. Very noble. So, the acting on this show, there's a certain level of hokiness because you have to remember, this is radio. They're conjuring up images, and it's just like in reading a book. They're trying to use words to conjure up images for you. And sometimes we may find it a little bit exaggerated, but if you listen with an open mind, you let yourself get absorbed in some of this old-time radio, it is just so much fun. So, those are a couple of ideas of fun things that we can do that are come around the Halloween season, and we can find it on Hoopla Digital. So again, if you have a library card, the Port Washington Library offers Hoopla Digital, and if you live elsewhere in the country, check into your local library. You may be able to tap into this great service. My name is Tony Traguardo, and thanks for joining us here on the Port Washington Public Library YouTube channel for another episode of Hoopla Diaries. Enjoy.